Hi everyone. Today we are talking with David Abraham of Abraham and Thakore. Welcome, David. Thank you for making time for the interview. We'd
Thank
like to
you.
we'd like to kick off with the first question. What do you love most about the philosophy behind your brand?
What I really enjoy the most is the fact that it tends to be somewhat minimal, that it's about finding the most disciplined approach to a design solution. It's about reducing, actually, and trying to do away with excess and finding a purer sort of form of expression.
That's very rare
Yeah.
in Indian fashion now. What would you say is exciting for you in fashion now, given the minimalistic and very contemporary outlook of the brand?
Well, I think what's happening here in India is actually really quite exciting because there's a lot of action happening in fashion now. There are a lot of new designers. The area, the whole field of fashion has now begun to expand, and we're finding different alternative forms of expression. So, from the one hand, you have something which is sort of very traditional and very very sort of embroidered and very rich. And you also do find a more modern, simplistic, sort of, pared down approach. And both seem to be valid.
On that vein, where Indian fashion is, moving to the Western world, or there's more Western attention towards India, how does going east to west affect your designs, or does that have any relevance for your sensibilities at all?
Well, actually, when we started the brand, we really started more with the West and then we moved east when the market began to grow here. So we did it slightly in reverse, actually. So we don't really see, and now, of course, we are much more, India is a much more important market for us, and actually the most important. But we don't really see a dichotomy between the East and the West. I mean, we see what we do as moving quite easily across borders.
You've had the privilege of being exhibited in a permanent exhibit at the V&A in London. How do you see the contemporary styles evolving from India? Because your take on a traditional sari is very different compared to what most Western audiences would think of. What do you think sets that apart? Do you think moving from the West to East shaped those sensibilities, or was it something right from your NID days in Ahmedabad?
Well, I think it's a combination of everything. I think it's about, being exposed to fashion and clothing all over the world, working with a globalized market, and the fact that we live in very modern urban environments in India. And our customers are, very urban, very modern Indian women here in India. So I think the dialogue begins, and then what we're really trying to do is we're trying to address, women's needs in the contemporary context and give them a modern solution. So I think that sort of affects the way we design uh, Indian products in a more contemporary way.
We've all obviously loved your take on belted saris and crop salwar kameez suits, and you've obviously shown us on the ramp how you see them as being worn. Do you think that translating from the ramp, the styling or a belted sari, for example, is that do you see that happening more often now? Do you see that evolving over time, or do you see people sticking to the traditional sense or traditional styling?
I think, by and large, I would say on an average level, I think people still adopt a fairly traditional approach. But what I'm seeing now, for example, with the sari is that a lot of people, young people, started wearing it again. And it's becoming much more popular. It's becoming a stronger part of fashion editorial in the Indian fashion magazines. And people are experimenting with different ways of wearing it. So I hope that we are doing also is just one part of a general conversation about how to modernize tradition.
On that vein, how would
Yeah.
you complete this sentence? We wish people would take more notice of.
Of the smaller details, the invisible details, and just the quieter things in life.
That's brilliant. And following up on that, if you
Yeah.
had to give fashion advice, and that is always a very personalized question, but what fashion advice
Yeah.
would you give to our blog readers?
I think, the most important thing is to be true to yourself. I mean, don't try to be something you're not. Don't try to dress like somebody you never will be. But it's to be really very true to yourself, to know what your strengths are and your weaknesses are, and to work around that.
Thank you so much, David.
Welcome.